Welcome to today's USP and Pharmatech webinar, PCM and Regulatory. It's all about the data. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. Next slide. Each registration is unique and grants the right for the individual registrant only to view this webinar. Sharing this webinar with unregistered viewers, either during or after its performance, violates Pharmatech Associates copyright and is prohibited. Next slide. If you have not already done so, we ask that you take some time to read the Pharmatech Associates course disclaimer. You can download this presentation, including the disclaimer, from your USP Education account. Please follow the instructions in your confirmation email to download the presentation. Next slide. Presenting today is Lawrence DeBelder, PCM Practice Lead at Pharmatech Associates. Welcome and thank you. I will now hand the presentation over to Mr. DeBelder. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Thank you very much for that introduction. In the coming 45 minutes, I would like to talk to you about the regulatory aspects of continuous manufacturing and why it's all about the data, as the title says, what the regulators expect, and how you will build up that information in your filing. But this is just high level, and I'm sure that if you are in the process of submitting a file or getting reviewed or audited, Pharmatech Associates has the capability and the willingness to support you in that activity, of course. Just like I did in the previous webinar about quality, I will first start about explaining how a batch process actually works, mainly then for oral solid dose drug product, and how continuous manufacturing could improve some of those disadvantages, just to set the stage. And so a drug product oral solid dose batch process typically works with first doing manual weighing of all the ingredients. Then they are put aside, and then when the commercial manufacturing is ready, then the product is moved to the blending area where it's blended, tumbled with a tumble blender X amount of times, which is in a validated way. And then it's stored again, samples are taken, it's waiting for the compression area to be ready. And when the quality assurance has sampled and released the blended material, it can go to the compression room, and then there compression happens. When the compressed tablets are all collected, they're sampled again. Again, it goes to the lab for check. It is released and can go to a coating process. So it's a cumbersome process, a very slow process with many steps. But even if in that process, if you have issues with segregation, if you have issues with flowability, often another step is added, the dry granulation or the roller compaction, where a roller compactor is going to forcefully press all that powder together so that you get a ribbon that folds apart into flakes, and those flakes will be able to be handled a lot better, will not segregate so much, or better flowable. Typically they go to a mill afterwards to get a consistent particle size distribution, and then it goes further down to the compression machine. Or even if you have poor compactability as well, with capping issues, etc., in your compression machine, other step instead of dry granulation, a wet granulation step could be added, which is most of the time a fluid bed granulator that creates granules by spraying a liquid on top of your fluidized material in a fluidized bed granulator and dryer. And then those granules, they will also go to that mill process to get a consistent particle size distribution. And from there, it goes to the compression machine and again to the coating. Now, all of those steps, very cumbersome, happen in different rooms with storage of intermediate materials, with separate release processes, samples in the lab. Takes very long, takes a lot of people, potential human errors can happen, etc. Now, just imagine that you would be able to connect all those processes to each other into one big equipment train with an overarching software that controls everything, and with sensors in place that follow all the material to assure that the traceability is there and that you have control over the complete process. Now, in that case, you would be able to measure your quality in line during your process, and at the end of the line, you would have your product already there. You would be able to have a steady state process. So instead of having every process step ramping up, ramping down, and then go to the next process step, you would be able to just feed in the material with automatic feeding systems. Loss in weight feeders are used normally for this. And you would have a constant steady stream of your process. So all the time you would be able to run in steady state, which gives you a low variability. And you would be able to identify with sensors in the line, in the process, if there's something wrong with your process. And if something is wrong, you would be able to deviate that section of your process separately, which is a lot better than measuring the quality afterwards and then having to discard the complete batch if you discover that something is wrong. So quality-wise, that's a big improvement. It's also possible to do with the same type of equipment on a smaller footprint, the same amount of material overall. And because you have a smaller footprint, you will need less energy. You will need less water consumption for the cleaning, and for you don't need to clean the bins, for instance, for the intermediate material. You don't have intermediate steps, so you would be able to do this a lot faster with less QA people for the release and for the batch record reviews. You would be able to do that with less operators, because you have only one room basically where everything is in, which you can run with a few people, instead of having all those operations in the different rooms. And the materials need to be transported from in between all those different rooms. So a lot less people needed in shorter cycle times on less space, which would help you tremendously with the cost of this operation. Because you use less electricity, not only in your smaller machines, but also you have less rooms. So less air handling units are needed for all those GMP rooms in your facility. So also there, a big improvement for sustainability and a smaller CO2 footprint. Now that is in commercial operation. Now just imagine that you can do the development on the same type of equipment, even a copy paste of this equipment in your development organization, because instead of having to make full batches for your design of experiments, you can just run it for let's say 20 minutes for each set of parameters. You switch over to the next set of parameters, and you have your next results again after 20 minutes. And like that, in 1 or 2 days, you can do all your design of experiments that you need for your development. Compare that to the weeks and weeks and weeks of different batches that you need to make, where you have to wait for the results in the that come from the lab, instead of having the data immediately at hand with the PAT tools that are in place in a continuous manufacturing line. So development can happen faster. You can do that with copy-paste equipment that looks exactly like the commercial equipment. So that means also that your tech transfer activity is a lot smaller, a lot lower, and a lot cheaper because of that. So that overall, faster development, faster tech transfer also means faster speed to market, which can be a very, very large driver, and which is for many companies that have implemented continuous manufacturing, the big business driver why they did this. Also, because you generate with those sensors that are in place in this type of line, and that measure with a high frequency a lot more than is done in a batch process, you're able to see inside the process with a lot higher resolution. You will know a lot more. You will have a lot better view on the quality, on the variety, on the impact of variance of your process, which can give you a more robust process during development as well. And so many advantages implementing continuous manufacturing, but of course there's a number of consequences. If you have a constant stream of equipment and you have a constant stream of material, where you start in your line with loss in weight feeders. Loss in weight feeders, they intrinsically have variation, so that variation needs to be blended out, and you need to assure that that blending is enough. And any variation you need to have under control, because variation in a constant, continuous system where the product is flowing constantly, any variation can end up very fast at the end of the line, and thus also in the end product with the patient. So you need to assure that every variation you understand, you follow, you capture, and you divert if it potentially would impact the quality of your end product. So that's the consequence. Now, how do you do that, and how do you, especially, what do the regulators expect of you, of data to assure that you have all the quality under control? That is what this talk is going to be about. Now, the most important thing of continuous manufacturing is the control strategy, and is how you assure quality, and that is as well for if you do your development for a continuous manufacturing process from the beginning, so for new product introductions, as for conversions. And there has been already quite a few products that have been developed in that way, both conversions of marketed products and new developments that have been developed for continuous manufacturing from scratch. And most of the time, when you see a list of what are the approved products in the market at this moment in the US, but also in other parts of the world, most of the time that list starts in 2015 with the first approved oral solid dose product by Vertex, which was Orkambi. And that was approved in the US in 2015. But actually, that was not the first product at all. In 2000, there was already an hot melt extrusion product that was created by Abbott, and that was a fully continuous process as well. So already at that moment, there was a continuous manufacturing product on the market. Novartis already in 2007 has produced a product and brought it on the market. Chinuin only for the Mexican market at that moment. In 2012 had a product already developed that was a wet granulated product on a GEA line that was marketed. And only then in 2015 the Vertex product came on the market. The first product that was a converted product, a conversion of an existing product that was produced in batch and that then was converted to continuous manufacturing, was a product of Johnson & Johnson, the product Presista, which is an HIV product in 2016, produced in Puerto Rico and for the US market. And then after that, a number of other products of Eli Lilly, Vertex again, Pfizer, and also a number of Japanese companies have been approved in local and global markets in a later stage. Now, the list is not extremely long. Is that a concern? Does it mean that this is just a fling or something, or continuous manufacturing is just something that is temporary and hype of the moment? Not at all. We can with certainty say that nearly all the large innovators, nearly all the big pharma companies have invested heavily and installed equipment to do continuous manufacturing, at least for their development organization, but many also in their commercial organizations. Generic companies have not so much picked up yet because the investment is relatively high and you need to start early up front investing, and the payback is not very fast from the beginning. But generics are picking up, especially on the drug substance side. And we see a lot of drug substance companies doing continuous flow, especially in India, but it's expanding to many other countries in the rest of the world as well. And then in the CDMOs, we have at least 5 CDMO companies in the world that have equipment up and running, and that are in some cases have capability and capacity to run continuous manufacturing solid products for customers. In total, there is about 80 continuous manufacturing lines in place, of which maybe about 30, maybe more, are in a commercial state already. So drug substance, as I said, in India, there's a lot of continuous flow ongoing already, especially in generics. There's several plants in the world that are already built. Eli Lilly, for instance, has a full plant built with a modular design for the generation of API in a continuous way. And most of the time, it is not a full, from the beginning to the end, continuous manufacturing of API in reality. Most of the time, it's a few process steps that are made continuous, and then you have a hybrid of part of the process is in batch still, and a part is in continuous. It's a smart way because most of the companies, they look where continuous manufacturing would make the most sense. And very often that is then in where the high energies, high temperatures play a role, or where specific chemical routes can be more efficient in a continuous manner than in a batch manner. So carefully, it is being looked at what specific steps would make the most sense in drug substance, and we see that evolution that it keeps on going in that direction. Now in biologics continuous manufacturing, there is a lot of activity as well. It's not at all as advanced as the API or drug substance in small molecules, but there's a lot of interest. So many companies are assessing it. Perfusion is already a very long time already on the market, and there's a number of products that where at least a number of the steps are already done in a continuous manner, and many companies are assessing to which extent that they can expand this as well. There is still some challenges, especially in the control strategy, in the PAT implementation, and some of the unit operations are not fully developed yet, or not in a fully mature state. So there is still some work that needs to be done in biologics, but there's a few very large innovators that drive the momentum of this, and for sure there is a tendency in the future to expand the integration in the industry of that. So we expect in the future also for the drug product of the small molecules that this will pick up a lot more also with the smaller innovating companies, that generics is going to pick up as well. OTC is going to pick up as well. Main drivers there would be that it has so many advantages in the quality improvement and the quality control and the understanding of the process on one end, next to the fact that it can help a process to be a lot more efficient and cost effective as well. We do see that standardization is happening, and there is more and more modularization of the equipment. So there is a strong need for the standardization of interfaces in between those modules. So all of that is a work in process, and it will grow fast, and it will the coming years be clear that there will be many more products that are going to be approved by different health authorities in the world. Now, those health authorities in the world, are they all very supportive? Well, there's a number of those that have announced publicly that they are very supportive. Mainly the FDA and the EMA in Europe and Japan have been the big drivers until now, and have announced all the time that they are very supportive since many years. But now also China announced that end of last year, which is a very important milestone for the global acceptance of continuous manufacturing in this field. And since that, the Chinese health authorities have made this announcement, we see also that the Chinese industry, pharmaceutical industry, has really picked this up and is trying to move fast in the implementation of continuous manufacturing processes there. But there's many countries that have approved multiple products already in the market, in the global market. At least 26 health authorities globally have multiple CM products approved. But still the big drivers are FDA, EMA, and Japan. In the past, UK was part of EMA. Now they are separate, but the UK is, so England is also very strong, has a lot of knowledge and is very supportive on the integration of continuous manufacturing as well. They're working together also. So the FDA works with the EMA for a strong collaboration on the assessment of these technologies. The FDA interacts with Japan and with China to share learnings as well. And there is, of course, the ICH Q13 document guideline that talks about continuous manufacturing and what is expected by all the participants of the ICH group when you submit a file related to a continuous manufacturing process. And that is as well for drug product as for drug substance, small molecules, and a part of the biologic processes as well. It's a great step forward, but still there would be a need for more global harmonization. I think there's a consensus of everybody. Also, the ICH Q13 is explaining what is expected, but how to get that data and how to do that in detail is not really explained very detailed in there. There will be trainings and there's supportive documents that are in the making, so it is going in a good direction, but still a lot more support would be needed, I think, for companies to be fully supported for that. Plus, there is still quite some differences in global health authorities and in the requirements of global health authorities versus a continuous manufacturing process. Some companies, some countries, they do not accept, for instance, that you do less than 3 validation batches, which the FDA and EMA, for instance, most likely do accept. So that's one of the differences, and like that, there's quite some other differences as well. So one of the challenges of the integration of continuous manufacturing in your facility and in your portfolio of tools to develop products is that you need to understand what are those differences between the health authorities globally, where you want to market your products, because you do not want to do a different development for several of those health authorities. Now, if you start conversations with those health authorities, well, it's clear what the process with the FDA and with EMA is. With the FDA, you can go with your novel technology to the ETT. In the meantime, direct compression is not seen as a novel technology anymore, so they call it that this is graduated. So it's only if you have real novel elements in your direct compression, you could go to the ETT and have conversations there up front, but in general that is unlikely that it will be admitted. For the other processes, wet granulation, roller compaction, that still is possible. Now, to get to the ETT, not so complicated. You need to submit a five-page request to get into the program, but that can even be done before you have a product. So you can, as soon as you have a control strategy, you have a clear view on what type of equipment you will have and how you will use it and how will you guard the quality on that type of equipment. Then you can go to the ETT, and even vendors can go to the ETT to have an in-depth conversation of what type of control strategies would be accepted and complete enough by the health authorities in the US. Now you also can go to with a Type C meeting or with a briefing book to the health authorities in the US, and that is the standard process. That is the same as for batch as well. Now in Europe, there you can go to the PAT team to have conversations up front on your process, and also there you can go before you have an actual product. So you can go there to discuss the control strategies. That can be more general control strategies, but you need to go there not with how should we do it, but with a full proposal, complete enough, showing that you are able to have control over your processes, and then just have conversation with the health authorities to see if they accept your way of doing things. Now that's for the FDA and EMA. In Japan, there are similar groups that can support you, but most other health authorities in the world, they do not really have that. So you just have to submit as it is, and then hope if there is a conversation possible. But often there's just not even a possibility for a conversation. So it's important to understand well what the health authorities in those other countries have seen already, what kind of experience do they have with continuous manufacturing, and to understand if there's differences, what those differences would be. Now, going back to the PMDA, it's not just the PMDA that reviews those documents. There's also the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, which oversees the activities of the PMDA, that will be the authorization body of the applications, that is also publishing guidelines related to continuous manufacturing and others. And they work together closely with the PMDA. And in the PMDA, you have basically two groups. One is the Innovative Manufacturing Technology Working Group that is publishing documents, and also the AMED Research Group, which is the Japanese Agency for Medical Research and Development. They have a group for biologics and a group for small molecules, and they have already published at least 4 documents related to how to implement continuous manufacturing. So it's they are very active, and the PMDA supports like that the implementation of continuous manufacturing in the industry. Of course, the view of all these health authorities is not that continuous manufacturing should replace batch manufacturing. They all agree on that batch manufacturing is a good way of producing medicine, and if you follow the guidelines that are out there already since many years, you are able to produce good quality products. But in reality, if you dive into the details, the quality indeed is just as good in a batch process, but it is measured afterwards. So you only know at the end of your process if your quality is really good enough, and if not, you have to discard the batch. So that's a big difference. Now, talking about the requirements of regulatory health authorities and regulatory bodies related to the assurance of quality in your system. Well, first you need to understand what is quality, and how to achieve it, and what are the drivers of quality, and how to measure quality. Now, there's many documents already out there. Of course, there's first we have to agree on a few definitions here. And so the quality is the foundation that allows patients and consumers to have confidence in the safety and effectiveness of their medications. Relatively vague on purpose, but the essence is that it's patient-driven, and all your processes ideally also have the patient in mind. So you look at what can affect the patient, and you start from there and work backwards into your quality systems and into your process development. And high level, there is then a number of systems that you have to put in place to achieve that quality in your development, in your quality risk management, and you need to have a quality system that overarches everything. We'll go into detail on that later. Now, the set of measures that you put in place to assure that quality, that's what we call the control strategy. And that can be as well equipment design aspects, as sensors that are measuring, and then a set of rules that if you have certain values that you take a decision, either diverting material or adjust your system, but also processes and procedures in place, so that, for instance, cleaning procedures or verification procedures or the handling procedures that your operators need to adhere to are also part of your control strategy. You achieve all of that by first doing your process development, by having a quality system in place, and you can measure that by quality system effectiveness measures, by process performance measurements, by laboratory performance measurements, and by measuring the robustness of your supply chain. Each of those have then their own quality metrics so you can quantify that in certain ways. And I'm not going to read through all of those, but you can see that there is a clear sequence of how to measure, and there is specific tools on assuring that quantitatively you can verify that your quality is under control as well. Here's an overview of what those quality metrics are. Now, all these processes are for a big part already described in guidelines, and you can find that on the ICH website, which is very complete. And it's not only about quality in there. ICH has published guidelines on quality, but also on efficacy, on safety, and all the others on other aspects that are also relevant. They put that in the multidisciplinary portion. So they have 4 big chunks where they have a set of documents. We're going to zoom into the quality guidelines then. In the quality guidelines, you have a document talking about stability, validation, etc. But there's a few that are very relevant for the control strategies for continuous manufacturing. Of course, you have the Q13, ICH Q13, that is specifically about continuous manufacturing. But more important is everything that you need to do anyway, also for a batch, and that is relevant for continuous manufacturing processes as well. And these are the Q9, Q10, Q8, Q9, Q10 documents of ICH, which are the guidelines in combination with Q13, and all of those together will help you to build your quality systems around your process and assure quality in your continuous manufacturing lines. Now, though they all work together, so it's not individual documents. Q8, Q9, Q10. They are linked together, and what links them all together is the control strategy and the knowledge management that flows basically from your early development all the way to your launch and your commercial state of your process as well. Now, if we go through them, the ICH Q8 document, at this moment it's a release number 2. We'll talk about that you start with your quality target product profile, which describes completely the end result that you want to achieve. You will then, from the patient start, you will describe what are the critical quality attributes that you want to achieve, how to achieve them, and then you do a risk assessment to understand what all has impact on those critical quality attributes that impact the patient. And then you develop a design space, or you do the development of your parameters. So it doesn't always have to be a design space, but you can also have a set of parameters in between where you need to stay in between. And then you design a control strategy that shows how you will be able to stay within that design space or within these parameters. And then you need to do a lifecycle management, show that you stay within your design space and that nothing is happening, and verify regularly that that everything is still under control. So that's high level how you need to develop a product. It's described in Q8 and very relevant as also for a continuous manufacturing line. As a next bucket, you have your quality risk management. So on top of your process development, you need to fully manage your risk throughout your complete life cycle. During process development, you need to identify the risks, analyze how much impact they could have on your final product, evaluate those, put mitigation actions in place. You develop your control strategies, so for automatic potential adjustments of your system or alarms, or how your system needs to respond. And then if you have events, so something is out of specification, you need to very clearly have procedures in place to handle those events. So how to review them, what to do with them, from when onwards do you need to potentially discard the batch, etc. And then over everything, you need to have risk management tools in place and a risk communication that assures that also management is aware of all those potential risks. And that management is a big part of what is described in ICH Q13. And you also need a quality system in place where you have quality risk management, where you have knowledge management, where the identification of new knowledge that is discovered, new knowledge that is discovered in when you have an event, that also flows back to development, and that can help in the improvement of your processes. But also investigations, the management responsibilities need to be clear, and management needs to be fully aware of what is going on and what are the biggest issues and how they are solved. And you need to have corrective actions, preventive actions in place, and a management system around that. Also a management system around your changes that you make, your performances of your processes, etc. So that whole thing is called your quality system, and also very relevant for continuous manufacturing processes. Even before the ICH Q13 was published, the statement of the FDA was then, well, we have already all the guidelines in place, and there's nothing that conflicts with what you can do with continuous manufacturing. So if you just follow Q8, Q9, Q10 properly, you will be able to submit a proper filing for a continuous process as well. The ICH Q13 is just an addition that shows you what specific aspects that you should additionally describe to show and to prove that you have a strong control strategy and that you have full control over your process in your continuous manufacturing product. Now, ICH Q8, Q9, Q13, Q10, and potentially Q13, they all work together as well throughout the different stages of your process and in the different areas of your operation. And you all the time have to verify to which extent you adhere to all three at the same time. Now, zooming into the ICH Q13 then, that has been developed by many health authorities, but also the industry. And that was very nice and very transparent of the ICH group, that they invited many different industry groups that tripled down also to all the different health authority, all the different companies that are willing to introduce continuous manufacturing. So at the end, all the pharma companies had also their say in the buildup of this ICH Q13 document. And so all those companies that participated in this, they also have, of course, their own local legislation, which is also important to understand, which is one of the reasons why in some cases it stayed relatively high level. So not everything is very detailed prescribed, because it cannot, in the ICH Q13 guideline, they could not put anything in that is in conflict with any of the local legislation of any of the members there. It talks about as well drug product, drug substance as a part of the biologic products. Therapeutic proteins, for instance, is part of the scope there, and it goes as well. It goes all the way from the development to the life cycle management of those products. In that document, it describes also how you need to put the data that you achieve in your CTD, and in which sections, what kind of information goes there. So that's very interesting. If you read the document, you will find that all your control strategy aspects and all the things that are essential for a good control over your quality, where it should go, and what is the minimum that is required to put in there. Now, again, it does not describe exactly how you need to acquire that data or what it should be as content, but it describes what you should put in there. And basically it comes down to, for a big part, that you need to have a robust control strategy and everything related to to the data and the proof that you have a robust control strategy. Now, what does that mean? Well, first we need to understand what a control strategy is. And if we look at the definition of control strategy in the ICH Q13 and in other health authority documents, it's typically always the same kind of description. But if you look at the details of this definition, you will realize that many of these words, they have very specific data and documents behind them. So if you look at the description that the controls can include parameters and attributes, for instance, well, they will refer to the critical material attributes and to the critical process parameters that you need to identify and describe in detail in your control strategy, that you have identified them and have measures in place that your system stays within these, and and describe then also what happens if it goes out of those. It also talks about the frequency of monitoring and control. So you need to have all your statistics behind it. You need to describe how you get to a certain sampling frequency and why, and it all needs to be scientifically driven and patient-centric. So everything you describe in there around your control strategy must start from the patient and needs to be proven by data as well. Implementing it is not so easy, but it's relatively straightforward. What are the high-level big steps? So you first start with a risk assessment. You do an initial risk assessment to understand what is the impact of all your variation and what are all the impacts of your for instance, your material attributes, but also variation of your system and potential risks that you have of human errors, for instance. What is the impact to your final quality? And then you do your material characterization to understand the variation in your materials very well. Equipment characterization to identify the ideal setup for your installation. You will do process modeling because you need to understand well how your product is moving through your system and how what the impact is of any variation. Then you do PAT integration, all the sensors that you have in place and the modeling around it. All of that needs to be tied together in a control architecture, and your software needs to describe how the line needs to respond on any of these measurements. And then once you have done that, you optimize your runtime to assure that that you fine-tune your line, that you don't reject too much that is not at all necessary, for instance. But you do that in an iterative way. You do a risk assessment again once that all those measures are in place to see what is the residual risks, and assure that you have a set of measures in place to manage those residual risks as well. There's a lot of expertise needed to be able to do that, but luckily there is also a lot of knowledge already available, and there is a lot of publications around it. And USP has a database which is called the Continuous Manufacturing Knowledge Center, which is free of charge. You can just log in there and subscribe to it, and there you can find all the documents that are publicly available all in one place. Plus, there are forums where experts are able to answer your questions in the system. Very useful. But also there is consultants like Pharmatech Associates, but there's also CDMOs that have capacity and that are capable and willing to help you with the integration of control strategies. It all costs extra money and time in reality, but if you look at the overall business case and of a continuous manufacturing process, most of the time it's absolutely worth it, and it gives you positive business cases, especially if it can help you to ramp up the speed to market. And like that, you could win a lot of money if you have additional sales before your patent expires. Now, one of the things that I talked about is the process modeling. And so predictive models will describe in there how much mix capability your line has, and so the variation that you have in the beginning of your line or in the middle of your line, to which extent is that blended out by the time that it reaches the end of the line, and how does that spread out, and from and if there is an excursion that is impacting, from when onwards should there be a diversion, so which portion should be diverted, and from when onwards is the product fine again to be released and to go to the patient. And so that's what typically a process model is doing. It's a predictive model because based on the measurements that it gets in the beginning of the line, it will predict how your mixture will look like at the end of the line. PAT is immediate measurements. So you have PAT tools in place that are measuring, typically with NIR, near infrared, or with other means, measure particle size distribution, humidity, the chemical concentration, etc., to be able to get to predict your CQAs, which are assay then or other things, and with this PAT, you get a very, very high resolution and a lot of data of your process in real time. So you immediately know it, so you don't have to wait for lab results, which means that you can adjust your process in the fly. If you see that you are deviating or you have a trend in a certain direction, you can readjust to stay nicely in the middle of your sweet spot of your design space, for instance. And also you generate a lot of process knowledge. So if all that process knowledge can be used also if you have an event to get quickly to the origin, the cause of that event, and also to a solution. So you have a very good source of information of solving issues as well in there. That's a great benefit of PAT. You can do real-time release. You have all the data. So if all the data that is linked then to CQAs, you can do real-time release of those CQAs. It doesn't always work for everything, but for a big part is very possible. As I explained earlier, you can do faster design of experiments, and you can monitor and control many parameters and properties at the same time, which is really effective and efficient. It doesn't work for everything. So for very low API concentrations, for multiple APIs in one formulation where you have an overlap of the different APIs in your chemometrical model, that is a difficulty. You need people that understand the PAT, that can make models, that can interpret the data, and you need the capability of managing those models lifecycle wise and managing all that amount of data, because it's not just the data that needs to be stored, it needs to be stored in a contextualized manner as well. And so that's quite a lot to understand, but the knowledge is out there and it's absolutely worthwhile, because this is what makes your knowledge of your process so significantly more, and this is what gives you a lot higher resolution in your process. Now, in development, there is a number of impacts because of that. So if you have the regulatory requirements related to the development aspects, there, of course, the data that you create is absolutely key, and you need to generate data that supports your state of control. What is your state of control? From when onwards are you in a full state of control? That you can assure that you have quality product at the end of the line. But also you need to show with data that the sampling frequency that you have shown, so the amount of PAT samples, for instance, or measurements per minute or per hour or per product, and the amount of product that passes by, you need to show why that is the correct frequency. So you need to generate a lot of data related to that. You need to show the models and describe how you use those models, to which extent that they are impactful for the patient or not. And you could think, okay, well, if I have all those models in place, do I still need HPLC? Well, you do, because you need to prove that the models are really working, and you need to refer that to something. Well, typically that is referred to HPLC results. So you still will need to develop HPLC methods as well, wet chemistry, next to your PAT that you put in place. And like that, there's all the data that will be needed in development, and that is required also by the regulatory bodies to show that. Now, the positive thing there is that early data you can also use in a later stage. Following the QBD principles, you can have an evolution of the body of knowledge. So from all the data that is generated in the beginning, it doesn't all need to be with fully validated models. In the beginning, you could have, so it depends on what you do with that data. But in the beginning, you could have other means, or you can have data that feeds into the decision of, for instance, a number of design of experiments, and then like that you can build up the body that you create, the body of knowledge that you create. And then you get to your tech transfer and to your commercial manufacturing. Also, there is a number of requirements that might be a little bit impactful or different. For instance, it's also possible to do a PPQ, but with only one batch or one run instead of 3 validation batches like it was in the past. We all know that there's a 10% rule for your stability batches. Well, there's no real link anymore if you do a continuous manufacturing tech transfer from a CM line that is the same basically in your development versus in your commercial space. And like that, there's a number of differences that potentially are impactful for your tech transfer and for commercial manufacturing when you talk to the health authorities. Most important is that tech transfer potentially is a lot cheaper, faster, and easier if you have similar or exactly the same equipment in your development versus in your commercial manufacturing. If you want to, in a later stage, do longer batches or longer runs or bigger batch sizes, that is possible. We can do that with different ways, either through a protocol, so describing already in your initial submission how you are going to do runtime extension in the future, or you can, and we hope that that would be possible in the future, but we didn't see any of those files pass by yet. That is that you declare that you're in a state of control, and that whatever you do in, if you are in state of control, so when you are in your design space and you are following a number of rules and adhere to a number of requirements, you as long as you stay in state of control, you would be able to run as long as you want. So that would be the ideal in the future. Maybe hopefully somebody will get an approval like that, and that would be great thing in the industry. Run rate extension. So instead of, for instance, 40 kilos an hour, you move up to 60 kilos an hour. That's something different because that impacts significantly all your models, your RTD models, PAT models. They are not, most of the time, they are not valid anymore. So you need to update them. So a partial redevelopment would be needed. And you need to understand all the impact on all the CQAs of all those changes that will have happened. And then another regulatory impact of after launch could be that, well, in your lifecycle management, you need to understand when you need to change your models. Maybe you get additional data, information that forces you to update your models, or you have an issue, or you see that there's a deviation, or your models are starting to shift at a certain moment. You need to revalidate and potentially even do a change in your models. And how do you do that? How do you file that? That's something that is also important to understand. Now, the approval time is something that is often discussed. So the fear of some of the companies that are hesitant to step into continuous manufacturing is that potentially the approval time could take longer. Now, the FDA was aware of this fear of the industry, and they did a self-audit, and they published that, and they showed that the first 5 approved products that they did for continuous manufacturing drug product, that all of those averagely they approved in a faster way. So 3 months faster. Well, a mean 8. If you look at the mean, 8 months faster. If you look at the median, 3 months faster. And the speed to market was 4 months faster averagely than the batch processes that they have compared it with. And I think they compared it with 50 batch files or something as a comparison. And this translated to an estimated revenue benefit of hundreds of $1 millions averagely for those companies. So definitely faster, so especially for the FDA, and it will translate into a lot of money and a good business case for those companies in any case. If you want to change your models over time, there has been a lot of discussion around it, but typically it comes down to an understanding what is the impact of those models. Are they low, medium, or high impact models, and do they origin a lot of risk for the patient or not? If there's any change in there, that's basically what it comes down to. Here's a summary. I'm not going to go through it, but it's for your own convenience. Summary of all the impact aspects in development, tech transfer, and changes after the launch. And as a conclusion, I think that we can, with confidence, say that if you implement the continuous manufacturing process, it's all about the data, of course, the data that where you show that you have a control strategy which is robust and which is assuring product quality at the end of the line. But having that control strategy in place, you will get a higher resolution into your process and a lot better process understanding. You will have your quality designed in your process. You will have higher automation, so a lot less risk for human errors, and you'll have no intermediates anymore. So also they're not standing around. There's no risk that they expire, etc. A lot less space needed in your facility, and your complete process will be a lot faster. So you get higher quality, lower patient risk, and like that, a significant reduction of the cost of poor quality. And so when you're doing a business case calculation, take the cost of poor quality into account as well, and that will definitely help. A strong control strategy also will need more data and more development activities specifically for that, which is great. Having more data, but it costs time as well. You will need additional API to generate that data as well. The health authorities are very, very supportive if you do a strong control strategy for your continuous manufacturing process, but they will also require that you prove everything with real data. So at the end, it is more effort. It's true. The knowledge is out there, so it is very doable. You will potentially get faster speed to market. You will have a lot lower tech transfer cost and effort. Overall, you can get a lower manufacturing cost. So mostly in nearly all scenarios where you have a new product introduction, it will be financially beneficial if you take the correct strategy. If you choose the correct type of equipment and the correct set of product mix, you will be able to get to a nice business case most of the time. And the health authorities, they will support you all the way. That would be my conclusion. So thank you all for your attention here. And now we can open for questions. So I see a question number 5. What are regulatory and quality considerations for bridging existing batch manufacturing to continuous manufacturing? So I assume that is the conversion of a marketed product, because for new product introductions, I explained everything in this and the previous webinar already, I think. But specifically for marketed products that are converted then into a continuous process, there's not really additional considerations. It's the same considerations, but in most of the time, what companies try to do is to avoid that they need to redo the bioequivalency studies, and try to get a bio waiver by doing bioequivalency studies. So not having to do the full bio studies, but and the clinical studies, but do a bioequivalency study by showing that it is similar for the continuous manufacturing product versus the batch product. And so that's what most companies try to achieve. So try to get a bio waiver doing that. Also, something to take into account is that there is a difference between batch and continuous formulations in that regard, that for batch formulations it is handled manually. So the excipients are poured into the blender in a manual way, and so the flowing capabilities of those excipients are not so relevant, or the API is not so relevant in batch. It becomes very relevant in a continuous process. And so it is possible that because of that, some additional tweaks need to be added. For instance, a premix of your API if it doesn't flow with something else, or potentially a slight formulation change. Your glidant, for instance, that needs to be adapted slightly. So there are certain tweaks possible, and then it becomes very critical that you show the impact of these tweaks are not impacting the patient. And so I think those are the biggest differences in case of a conversion. Then I'll check the question number 3. You can explain the rationale of testing for continuous batch, but does it need to be reconciled against the traditional batch? So the reconciliation you always have to do. So you will always have to show that where all your product is coming from. You need to show that if you have losses in your equipment or and in your reject, you need to reconcile all of that. So that is important. And if you have any losses anyway. So also if you predict that you are going to run, for instance, for 36 hours, you need to say up front that you are going to create a certain amount of material. You have a flexible batch size often, so you can choose, for instance, to run between 4 hours and 36 hours. But at the beginning of your batch, you have to say then that you are going to run, for instance, 36 hours. That translate into an amount of material. You also need to achieve a certain yield. So if that yield is, for instance, 80%, then if you at the end of the run have produced less than 80%, you need to start an event. You need to start an investigation, because it means that something has gone wrong. Even if you have the flexibility of only running 10 hours instead of 36, you still need to declare upfront how much time or how much in total material you are going to produce. And if you are not producing enough and your yield levels are not achieved, you'll have to explain that. And so I think there I touched point about all the aspects of reconciliation. The use of HPLC technology to take samples in a lab outside the CM room is a possibility. Having PAT in place, it's not absolutely obliged. So theoretically, you could also run a continuous manufacturing line without having PAT in place. So that's one thing. So theoretically, you could take samples manually and do HPLC testing offline and still have a full valid control strategy. The only thing is, in a continuous manufacturing line, there's a lot of material passing through. Your sampling frequency needs to be relatively high to assure that you capture all the potential variation and the impact to your CQAs at the end. So you would need to take an enormous amount of samples to do the HPLC testing offline if you would choose that route. So most of the companies do not do that. They sometimes do that in their clinical phase, because at that moment there's still no validated PAT models yet in place. But normally they all go for PAT in place. Not always all the same PAT, but they go for PAT in their control strategy overall. And you will need your HPLC as your initial reference to build your PAT models as well, and potentially to revalidate them afterwards as well. So you will need to keep HPLC in any case. In the event of a maintenance of one of the production steps, it stops all the processes. Yeah, that's correct. Is there a way around it? No, not really. Try to do your maintenance during your changeover. So a continuous manufacturing line typically is running X amount of days or weeks, and then you have a changeover of sometimes 1 day, sometimes 2 days. Try to plan for your maintenance in those 1 or 2 days. Also, it is likely that because the throughput or the amount of material that you can generate on a continuous manufacturing line is so much that you likely will be able to not have to fully load it throughout the complete year. So you can plan in preventive maintenance days in between your commercial runs as well. So plan that carefully, and it still will be a cost-effective system of doing it. You don't have to plan it 24/7 all year long to get to a positive business case most of the time. And with that, I think I answered all the questions. If there's no more questions, then I thank you very, very much for your participation, and hear you next webinar.